The Money Show.
Consumer Ninja.
Well, I don't know if you've come across this problem, but time and time again we hear stories about a particular scam that involves basically messing with your email, and the consequences can be massive. Well, your consumer ninja, Wendy Nola's been looking at this. Wendy, good evening. There's actually a name for this. It's called business email compromise. What is it?
Yeah, BEC, it's been shortened to as everything else. It's more and more prevalent, growing all the time despite all the warnings. So what it is in a nutshell is fraudsters hack into email servers, either of the company that sent out an invoice or needs you to pay them money, or the person that's paying the money. And they watch the emails going in and out, and then they intercept an email from a service provider to the client saying, "What, we need you to pay this amount. There's an attached invoice." And they make payment. And unbeknown to them, the fraudster has done this interception, removed the company's legitimate banking details and added theirs. So the client goes ahead and pays the money to the fraudster instead of the company that they intended to pay their money to.
Okay, and in this case, this is a person called Malcolm. What happened to him? Okay,
he lives in a village in the Western Cape. His email to me began, "After the sale of my house, I wanted to invest the proceeds with Alan Gray. That's he and his financial advisor, discussed it on the phone, and then we began exchanging emails." And somewhere along the line, and I've been down this rabbit hole, and it was late July, his email server had been hacked, and in late July, the fraudster then inserted himself using an email address ever so slightly different from that of Malcolm's legitimate financial advisor. Just as usually happens, a letter or two different, and so your eye doesn't catch it unless you're specifically looking. And that's how Malcolm came to deposit, wait for this, 3 million rand into a fraudster's account instead of that of Alan Gray. I mean,
3 million rand. Wow.
Yeah, it's just my heart. It's one thing reading the statistics, Stephen, but when you engage with people that has happened to and you walk that journey with them as far as you can, it's not your money that's gone. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. So what happened, as he found out later, is, he found out because his actual financial advisor asked him if he'd been receiving her emails, and of course he hadn't. He'd been liaising with the fraudster. And he wanted to know, of course, you can't sort of process the fact that you've lost this money, so someone's got to be to blame. So he said, well, how did his bank allow the fraudster to open an account in the name of Alan Gray? Well, of course, that's not what happened. The account would have been in a person's name, most probably a money mule, so that, the criminal's identity is protected. And so Malcolm, even though he would have made in doing that EFT, he would have made the recipient Alan Gray, and then put the account details of the fraudster, it would have gone through, because here's what many South Africans don't realize. It doesn't matter. The only details that have to be correct is the bank account number, and that bank account number needs to be a valid bank account number with that bank, right? So all the other details, the codes, the name, are actually irrelevant. So his money went into the fraudster's account, even though it wasn't actually Alan Gray's account, and it was someone else's, but the money went anyway. And so Malcolm has a really important story to tell.
What have I learned from this? The first thing, I think, when one is making a large payment is to first send a test payment, a smaller payment, and make sure that arrives, and then speak to the people telephonically and make sure they have received it. The other thing I've learned is not to trust email communication when dealing with financial matters. I did try phoning my financial advisor on the day of the fraudulent transaction. Unfortunately, she didn't answer her phone that day, so I phoned her office. I spoke to the assistant, who offered to phone my financial advisor, but I declined because I didn't want to bother her. I said, don't worry, we are communicating by email. Of course, the emails were the fraudsters. How has this impacted me? Well, it's obviously impacted me financially, because that 3 million rand that was the proceeds of the sale of my house.
And of course, I mean, one of the issues with all of this, Wendy, is that I mean, if you look at the emails, were there any clues? Were there red flags? I mean, was there any indication that something was off here?
Yeah. Now I need to say up front is, I'm sitting here dispassionate, cool, calm, not about to make a big payment, and I'm looking for clues, right? So they were quite subtle, to be fair. There were some minor spelling mistakes like loose instead of lose, that kind of thing. The biggest one was that he signed off, I'm saying it could have been a woman fraudster. They signed off with awaits your response, which really stuck out to me. So I asked Malcolm, is that the way your actual FA signs off her emails? And he said, no, it isn't. I just didn't notice at the time. So I have to say, though, that this advice is going to become less and less relevant because the fraudsters and their fake emails are going to be harder to spot, because even if English isn't their first language, they can turn to AI and get it right. Although I will say, if you're observant, there will still always be some tone issues. Something that doesn't quite sit right is not, if you're used to corresponding with the person, something's a little bit off, but that's why we just really, really need to pay attention to these things.
Okay, so what can you do if you're about to make a big payment? I mean, how can you look after yourself? And you've got to do this consistently, obviously.
Absolutely. So if first of all, the first red flag that must go up is if a company sends you an email with an invoice attached. Okay, so you've got to be instantly suspicious that this has been intercepted by a fraudster and you're going to be paying your money into their account instead of the company's. That has to be your default thought, right? So never make a payment that's come to you as an attachment to an email. Never make that payment without first phoning the company, sourcing the details yourself. Don't go don't phone what's on the invoice, and just checking. Ask for the payment department and check. They will welcome that, and they certainly don't see that as a. I do it a lot myself. They don't see that as an annoyance, so do that. It's also a really good idea to exchange banking details right at the beginning of the relationship, but you must still check later. Don't wait until right before the payment has been made, because you've given the fraudster lots of time to track. Some companies go as far as to advise their staff, have a face-to-face consultation with the client or any other person making the payment, and exchange banking information at that meeting. So if it's over Teams or Zooms, you must have the video on and get the parties to read their banking details into the record before sending them. So that's protecting the company, and it's protecting, mainly it's the payer that has to pay. So I really like that idea. We don't have to make it a schlep. We can use technology to help us. Make sure your PC or laptop has the most up-to-date updates and virus and malware software. Remember, it was Malcolm's email server that was hacked, so he's now done that after the fact. Enable multi-factor authentication on all email and bank accounts to give yourself another layer of security. These things which we hear and don't do. Use unique, strong passwords on your email accounts. And with email addresses, check, especially if it involves making a big payment, just check that email address. In Malcolm's case, that was 2 extra letters that he didn't notice, and it cost him dearly.
Wendy Knowler, thank you so much. It's a horrific story, and it happens all too often. Wendy Knowler, of course, you Consumer Ninja on The Money Show.